Hello and welcome to another episode of First Watch, another spoiler-ridden episode where the Star Bros talk about the newest Star Wars content. This week, of course, we're talking about The Mandalorian Chapter 14, which heartbreakingly is called The Tragedy. I'm Jan Solo. I'm joined here by my bro host, Ben Skywalker.
What's going on?
Like a lot of you, we're probably, reeling emotionally from everything that happened in this episode. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter talking about starting support groups together just to get through this next week. So, dude, tell me, how are you holding up after this episode?
Well, you know how I'm holding up because as soon as I watched it, I didn't get to watch it until the end of the day like I typically do because I'm working during the day and have kids. But at the very end of that episode, I texted you, it was like, okay, let's get on to Fortnite. I need to shoot some people. Vengeance will be mine. It was kind of my motto for the evening. I just was so heartbroken. And as soon as I saw the words "the tragedy" flash across the screen, I just thought, oh, great. Two things that came across my mind. One, this is the episode that we knew would eventually happen. We would lose Grogu and we would have to fight through the chaos of getting him back. But then the other thought I had was, thank goodness this isn't the cliffhanger for the end of the season.
Right, there's 2 more episodes.
Yes. Yeah, and hopefully we get some good resolution there, but I think some blood's going to be spilled, unfortunately.
I think you're right. And speaking of your reaction, so I am one of those crazy people who gets up really early and then watches it with breakfast, basically. But I mentioned to you and a couple other folks that, normally, like a normal human being, I watch TV sitting down. But Chapter 13 and Chapter 14, I found myself standing most of the time because it's not enough to be on the edge of my seat. Like I'm just a bundle of nervous energy and I'm kind of like jumping out of my skin. So I like pace in front of the television.
I told my wife that you did that and she goes, huh? I don't get it. Why would you do that? So I wonder if you're alone in that, but I'm sure you'll find a few people that are at least jumping off the couch and had done it so much this episode that they were practically standing the whole time.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not alone. There's probably dozens of us, but yeah, dude, I think like, when you're going on a roller coaster and you're going up and up and up the hill for like that first drop, I feel like that's what a lot of this season has been. And we just went over and started the first drop, and that's a terrifying moment. It turns into a bunch of fun and it usually ends well, but that moment is just like, oh gosh, what was I thinking? So let's talk about the episode a little bit. So what are some things that, had you sort of like jumping up and down and going crazy? What are some of the things that maybe broke your heart? Like, let's break it down.
Okay, so let's start with the positives first, and I'll start with the surprising. And I think the first surprise was that Fennec Shand was back, which actually made me so happy because once we lost her at the what was it, episode 5 from last season, I just went, oh my gosh, she was great. Why did we have to lose
very cool character.
Very cool. And could really I feel like we didn't really get to see her in action that much. So this was exciting for me for 2 reasons. One, it kind of reinstated this idea that they're able to use cybergenetics to be able to bring people back or to keep people sustained and alive. That's something very unique to Star Wars. And I think the second thing was we got to see her lay down the law and actually, fight in a way that was up to character for her. Like she was kind of pitched as this really bad bounty hunter that no one could defeat, like one of the most difficult in the galaxy, and then she was defeated in this episode. Like that didn't sit well with me. So I got to see her be as menacing as I wanted her to be.
Yeah, and it's really cool because now we have all this lore about her. I mean, even Mando in season 1 talks about how how tough a adversary she is, and he tries to talk the younger, brand new bounty hunter out of the mission because it's just not worth it. She's too tough. She's too good. She sounds to be like on that legendary bounty hunter level with somebody like a Boba Fett. So the fact that she's back and the fact that she is joining forces with Mando ultimately at the end of this episode is pretty awesome.
It is. And that's where I think the second one, which was surprising and exciting to me, was Boba Fett. First of all, Boba Fett finally getting his moment to lay down the craziness that we expected out of him, fighting in a way that only Boba Fett would be able to fight, 40 years later, we finally get to see him in action, live action at least. It was definitely worth it. Like, he looked menacing and mad, and just, and you got to also see what his armor did too. So
Yeah.
once, when he did it without the armor, he was bad, and then when he did it with the armor, it was just took it to another level. Like, so I was really excited by that, just to see Boba Fett in action for the first time. I felt like we just, as Star Wars fans, like we deserved that. That
Yeah.
was a payoff to fans that have been around for a really long time that love Boba Fett.
Yeah, totally. And I was kind of thrown off by him arriving at first. So I kept thinking that when the tracking beacon was put on the Razor Crest, that maybe the Empire hired Boba Fett to go after Mando.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why he landed there first. We ultimately find out that that's not the case. You know, the Boba Fett, for whatever reason, doesn't have any love for the Empire. But yeah, he sort of appears in his robe with his hooked weapon, which I was reading is actually based on a Polynesian melee weapon. You know, the hooked thing with the spike on the end of it. I think it's Fijian. So it's pretty cool. Like it harkens back to, yeah, it harkens back to some of Tamara Morrison's heritage, which is really neat. But yeah, then we get to see him in all his glory with the original armor, and you know, it's a match made in heaven. The armor's purpose built for him, and or he's adapted it sort of from his dad, and you know, nobody wears it better at this point. So to see him using it, and he just looks like effortlessly, flawlessly cool. So I loved that line when he blows up one of the transport ships and says, "I was aiming for the other one." And it's like, wow, Boba Fett missed and still made it look really cool.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, wait, I didn't think you hit that one. Oh, but he took them both out that way. Very cool. And then he said that line. I was like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
But even better too, I think, is the establishment of his character. Like a lot of times, I think you believe that he's a villain from Empire,
yeah.
And you realize he's just doing his job as bounty hunter. Like, he doesn't have any loyalties, and then he's actually upset that the Empire is back, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That was kind of interesting to me. Like, you worked for them, but you're actually upset that they're back. And I find it interesting that now his character is much more complex than what we thought it was in the past 40 years that we didn't have much to go off of. And maybe some time in the Sarlacc pit changes a man, you know?
Yeah, and that's totally fair. He's had some time to reflect on, you know, the first phase of his life. His life is probably before Sarlacc pit and after Sarlacc pit, if I had to guess, because things probably really changed for him that day. Well, or however long he was in there.
I mean, he watched his father murdered. Like, that was another big changing point for him, and that is the rage that fueled him for such a long time. I think this has finally started to quell that rage a little bit, and maybe he's, you know, turning out to use his rage, use his anger, use his abilities for not a better purpose, but at least not as menacing of a purpose.
Yeah.
Like, he has loyalty. And he says, we haven't held up our end of the bargain yet. We were going to help you until the end of this. Both Fennec Shand and him saying that. I'm like, dude.
Very honorable, right?
Yeah. Now you love, and then it kind of gives the history that, oh, his father was a foundling, that there's history to this armor and to who he is. And it's like, he actually deserves to have this armor. It wasn't just something he stole.
Yeah, so, yeah, and the foundling thing we'd never heard before, right? Like, that doesn't come up anywhere else. So that's a pretty cool parallel. And right away, you can just picture what's happening in Din Djarin's mind when he's imagining Jango Fett also going through something like he would have gone through. But dude, it's funny. This morning I was watching I can't remember if it's season 2 or season 3. I was watching an episode of the Clone Wars where little Boba Fett is trying to kill Mace Windu. Do you remember this episode?
Yep, I think it's the end of season 2 if I'm not mistaken, but yeah.
That sounds right. But there's like little glimpses in there of his character and of the things that he thinks are right and wrong. Like at a certain point, they have 3 hostages who they are sort of abusing, and one of his counterparts wants to execute one of the hostages, and he doesn't want to do it because they're defenseless. And where's the honor in that? So I thought
Yeah.
that was cool, and sort of complicated him as a character a little bit just after. I watched this episode last night, but yeah, all you Boba Fett fans can definitely be doing a victory lap right now, and I have a feeling that you can continue doing that into the next couple of chapters, because what a shining moment for him.
Totally agree. Now, we got to move on to one other area of the question that you asked. But before I do, I've just got to say that the action in this episode was some of the best action, and
Yeah,
seeing them just uh, all kind of team up, the three of them, and just take all these stormtroopers out. And when you get that second wave that comes in, and you're just like, oh, I actually felt like there's no way that they can withstand all these stormtroopers, right? Like, not at
yep.
all. But then Boba Fett comes in with the costume, gosh, with the armor back on, and you're like, all right, day is saved again. It was so well done, to the point that I really don't know if there's any better executed action in Star Wars. Like, this to me was some of the best action that we've gotten. And
Yeah,
actually, that's a stretch, but I mean, it was that good.
yeah, and there's been a ton of great action in this series, right? They're constantly sort of one-upping themselves. Like, I think about episode or chapter 8, Redemption, in the first season, where everything sort of comes to a head, and IG-11 is racing into town on the speeder bike with Grogu strapped to his chest, and there's a face-off then with Moff Gideon. Like, this show has just been sort of amping up the action as it goes, but this was some really good. What are supposed to be three of the best warriors in the whole galaxy facing off with two divisions of stormtroopers, or whatever their units are called.
Yeah.
And it was terrific, and I really liked how a lot of it was shot. Like, I really liked how when Boba Fett would swing his weapon and hit one of the stormtroopers in the head. I don't know if you caught this, but
Yeah.
little chunks of their helmets would go flying.
Yep.
Like, whatever it was doing, it was shattering, the face of their helmets, or different chunks of their armor was just zooming past the camera, which is like little stuff like that I thought was really well done.
Yeah. So great detail.
And,
I love it.
and by the way, this might be a good point to call out. A lot of people on Twitter and other places were freaking out yesterday and today about this particular scene, because they shot it out in the middle of Simi Valley in Los Angeles, or just north of Los Angeles, and it's sort of a populated area, and so there's a lot of people who saw some of this filming, and it was apparently such a small unit that was on site that a lot of people thought that they were filming some kind of fan film. There wasn't like big Hollywood trailers. There wasn't 1,000 people. There wasn't like, giant food trucks feeding the whole giant crew or anything like that. Like, it was just a handful of people and a few cars. So you were speculating that this might have been the second unit, and the first unit might have shot all the Hollywood type stuff on a set somewhere. But there's a lot of fan pictures of this scene on this day, or these days when they were there. Just a bunch of stormtroopers running around in the California desert, and now people are kind of like pinching themselves because they're like, I saw some of the filming of The Mandalorian. I didn't know it, but I got to see some of it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and my reasoning for saying it might have been the second unit was because it didn't sound like, from some of those fan reports, that they caught a glimpse of Filoni or Favreau or the director, or
Right.
Or Mandalorian or something like that. Like, if there were some other things that would have really tipped, it was just a bunch of stormtroopers from the sounds of it.
Right.
So there was nothing else that tipped it off that this could have been the scenes that they were shooting. They were just like the other scenes that they needed, of the stormtroopers running and coming up the hill and things like that. So
yep.
That was my thought of why it could have been the second unit. And maybe don't hit yourself too hard, like because if you would have seen any of those, it definitely would have tipped it off, and they probably wouldn't have done it in a populated area in LA if they had all those other pieces.
Yeah, I think back to when they were filming The Last Jedi, and they were filming the Octo scenes on, that actual island is somewhere off the coast of Scotland, if I remember correctly. And there were journalists and paparazzi types on boats trying to get to the island, and they had security boats that would intercept them. And the people in the security boats would talk to the paparazzi and the journalists and whatever. And I remember hearing an interview where the one guy was recording was like, "So what are you guys filming?" And the security guy goes, "I something for the BBC." And he's like, "Okay, what is it?" Like just grilling him with questions. And the cover story was, I think it was some kind of nature documentary. There was clearly none of that in California when they're filming this Mandalorian thing, but maybe that's a great tactic. Is,
Maybe.
go ahead, throw your second unit out there, throw some extras out there, and there's not going to be enough there to really draw any suspicion. But yeah, a lot of people are just like, I have pictures. I'm like, I was there taking pictures, and I had no idea what it was I was taking pictures of.
And now I'll tell the
That's
world
kind of
about
cool.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
Very, very neat. All right, we got to answer the second part of your question though, which is there were a lot of cool moments in this, but there were a lot of tragic moments, as the title suggests, in this as well, that just ripped your heart out.
Yeah.
And I would like to hear what yours were, because I've got quite a few.
Gosh, yeah, where do you even start? Maybe we can go back to the beginning, which is we're with our favorite characters on Tython because Ahsoka Tano told Mando to take Grogu the child to this special, what did she call it? Like a seer stone?
Yeah, something like, yeah, I think so.
And to set him on top of it, and that he'll sort of reach out with the Force and perhaps connect with another Jedi, and that Jedi might become his teacher, might be the person who takes baby Grogu under his wing. So I mean, that the opening scene where Mando is talking to Grogu and testing out saying his name and just kind of watching him react, like that little scene just tells you so much about how far they've come, how bonded they are, and just how inseparable to me they feel. But at the same time, we know that this whole thing, I mean, it's almost like fostering or something. This whole thing ends, we know it's supposed to end differently. It's supposed to end with Grogu and Mando going off in different directions because they have different destinies. And so for me, coming to Tython to sort of face that and stage Grogu's destiny, like that was a little bit of a bummer. That was a little bit bittersweet. And you can hear Mando in the beginning sort of talking to himself of, this is what I said I would do, and this is the best thing for you. Like he's talking himself into it a little bit.
He's having to remind himself, yeah.
Yes, because he like us, like everybody else, is sort of smitten with little Grogu, and we want him to stick around forever. And
we're not just smitten with Grogu too. We're smitten of the two of them being a team.
Yeah, we love that combination. It works really well, and I don't think we want to see it come to an end. So like that was the first heartbreaking moment of it was almost like the whole thing of like, since I love you, I gotta set you free, and he's trying to find a way to set him free.
Yeah, and I think it was just a germinating seed that was planted in planted this whole entire time, but one that you really saw start coming to fruition in the last episode, The Jedi, where you saw a little bit of that father-son relationship start to really blossom. And this was, all right, well, I guess I gotta let you go, but you're like a son to me now. I can't really do that. And you can tell that Grogu was feeling the same way. So it's it just sets it on this somber note that makes you feel like this is not going to end well. Like it's not going to just end with a nice parting. It's going to end in a way that breaks your heart. And before we even get to the part where your heart gets broken, the next tragedy that we had was losing the Razor Crest. To me,
oh my gosh, yeah.
When that I just was like, they made it so that you cannot come back from this. Like this isn't earlier in the season when a bunch of spiders were attacking it. You found a way to limp across the galaxy to finish your job. This is blown to oblivion.
Yep.
You are not getting this shit back. And the only things that survive are the knob and the Beskar steel. Like that's it.
Yep.
It's so rough to see.
It's heartbreaking, and our bro Chris Ryans was saying it's really got to stink for a lot of the people who spent like $300, including tax and shipping, on buying that special edition Hasbro Razor Crest. But it'll live on forever in our hearts. Now it's just a smoking crater, unfortunately. But Yeah, I think one of the BROAXIUM, one of our BROAXIUM bros was also speculating that maybe this is the beginning of Mando somehow inheriting Slave One, which would be really cool.
Dude.
Because he's got to get around the galaxy somehow, right? And now
Hmm.
his fates are sort of locked. His fate is sort of locked in with Fennec Shan's and Boba Fett's, and who knows what could happen from here. I could see it. I could see it being the case that maybe Boba Fett meets some type of really heroic ending, rather than getting thrown into a Sarlacc pit. Maybe he sacrifices himself for somebody else or something like that. So
Yeah.
who knows? But yeah, it's just a smoking crater, and I said to you, like, it felt to me like it was like an ad for Beskar, because it's literally just a smoldering crater. But look at the Beskar; it's completely unharmed. No wonder it's so valuable.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it has become kind of a character. I mean, from the first episode, the first chapter of season one, like the interior of the Beskar is kind of Mando's sanctuary. There aren't many places he can go where he feels completely safe, but it seems like when he's piloting the Razor Crest, when he's sort of in that element, it feels really safe and secure, which is part of like the reason that, and maybe we'll talk about this character in a moment. Part of the reason why when in season one, when we were going to spring the one character from the prison ship, and we had Mayfeld and Zero and all those other characters
Yep.
kind of walking around inside the Razor Crest, it felt really uncomfortable. Like, we
Hmm.
did not want them in there. We did not trust them to be in there, because I think part of that is we've just always thought of that space as being Mando's sanctuary, and now that is completely gone. And so's his cool rifle. So
Yeah.
that's gone now too. But yeah, he's got his Beskar spear, and that's probably worth a pretty penny. So I'm sure he can, if he can ever get off world again, and I'm sure he will with Boba. Then he can buy himself another ship. But gosh, that was heartbreaking. That was really sad to see that go.
Yeah. You just reminded me too that we lost Zero for good too, because Zero was in that, uh, in all that wreckage. Um,
Yeah, so Zero's last words officially were the words of the Frog Lady.
yeah. Yeah. Exactly. He's never getting put back together. Poor Zero. Not
Nope.
really.
Rest in
So
peace. No.
rest in pieces. Um,
Yep.
so you're right, and we'll get to Mayfeld, I think, a little bit later, because the one thing we need to chat about first is the next tragedy, which is Grogu getting taken and apprehended by,
Yep.
uh, not the Empire, whatever you want to call them now. Um, I just
They look like imps to me.
yes they do. Uh, I mean, I knew that was coming, so I was ready for it, and I don't think that we've seen the end of the dark saber in action, for example, um, or the dark troopers even too. Uh, but
Yeah.
it was just sad and disappointing to see that
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And it comes on the heels of uh, Grogu sits up on the stone and he manages to make some kind of connection. And we can't really see into that. And we can't speculate. We can speculate about who he might have connected with, but um, we were talking about how I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's like you pick up the stone and you dial a specific Jedi, or if it's like back in the day when you used to call somebody's house and you didn't know who would answer. You knew that you were calling the right house, but it could be like your friend answers, or it could be like your friend's dad, or who knows. But it looks like he made some really powerful connection there, which is what they were hoping to do. What Ahsoka had in mind when she sent both of our heroes to Tython. So to have that experience, to make that connection, to have the Force be so powerful and palpably, you can see it in front of you, just as it manifests in this like shield that's surrounding him. And then all of a sudden, he's just snatched up and taken away onto this completely hostile environment. So that was completely heartbreaking to see that happen, and it was heartbreaking watching Mando trying to jump into the force field to get him out of there, because he knew that they were out of time. He knew
Yeah.
he had to make a run for it.
Or even
But
the fact that the force field drops right when he walks away. Like he's like, okay,
yes,
fine, I'll go in to protect you, and then the force field drops. Like, come on.
yeah. But then I was just thinking about this morning about how, if you would have broken through the force field and been able to run back to the Razor Crest, then maybe they would have timed that badly and gotten in as the rocket hit or something. So um, maybe that timing worked out in a good way. But yeah,
Maybe.
totally
I mean,
heartbreaking to see him zooming off into the sky in the
yeah.
arms of a Dark Trooper.
I mean, yeah, and I'll say like it was very satisfying to see Grogu go to town on a couple of stormtroopers because he was just so angry of being there and showing them like you're not going to hold me and
Yep.
get away with it. Though it looks like those little shackles will hold him steady for a little bit. Jeez.
Isn't that horrible?
Yeah, it totally is. Don't put a baby in shackles. But I guess he's 50 years old. The other thing though is it does leave that big question of who did Grogu connect with? And that's the
Yeah.
big question for us. Who did Grogu
Yep.
connect with? Did anybody answer the other end of that telephone call? Um, and if so, who? Like,
Yeah.
and what path did he choose? Like Ahsoka said, he's going there to choose a path. Like that is essentially what he's doing. And maybe the fact that he was able to connect through the Seer Stone was him choosing that path. But we
Yeah.
just don't know yet. I'd like to think that he reached out to somebody and somebody has heard, and we're going to get them in the next episode or two. But we have no idea who it's going to be. We have a lot of speculation on who it could be, but
Yeah.
we still got a lot to figure out, to hear about. So I don't know any answers. I have speculation. I mean, I will say this: how cool would it be if they did find a way to bring back Luke and
Yeah.
bring back Ezra? It's if one of those two were the ones that come back in, like that would be amazing, personally.
Yeah.
And especially if you've got Ahsoka and Thrawn now, Ezra coming in would be great because all their fates are kind of intertwined.
Yep.
So um,
Agreed.
we'll find out what happens though. That's a big question going into these next two episodes, and maybe as well like with Mayfeld coming back, which I'm excited about. Actually, I'm excited that we're going to get that crew back. But who else will join the cause? Who else will Mando be able to recruit to help him go and save the child? I mean, he's got a lot of people he's met.
Yep. I mean, we just got BO-KATAN this season. There's still a lot of Mandalorians from his covert in season 1 who he was pretty tight with. They went to bat for him in a big way. But I think it's all sort of careening towards a giant face-off where they're going to hunt down wherever Moff Gideon is, and Dr. Pershing are hiding the child somewhere in the galaxy. And this Avengers level type group is going to descend upon that ship or that base or whatever, and they're going to shoot their way in indiscriminately and find some way to kind of get the kid out. But if you think about the firepowers in that group, there's going to be some Jedi, hacking his way through. Maybe it's Luke, maybe it's Ezra. Like, who knows who it is?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some Mandalorians, the most dangerous bounty hunters in the galaxy. Cara Dune seemed to step up right away when he asked her about it. So who knows who else they're going to produce?
And maybe she pulls the strings that she has now that she's connected to the New Republic and says, listen, this is a mission that we as a New Republic need to take because it's the Empire, they're threatening, there's proof that they're back.
True.
And this is an asset that they've taken that is really critical to restoring the Jedi and restoring the balance of the Force in the galaxy. So there could be a way to bring in Filoni again and the crew that have been piloting those X-Wings, right? So
Wolf Trapper or Trapper Wolf, whatever his name is.
Trapper Wolf, that's right. Oh, we got a lot to look forward to in these last two episodes. I can't wait.
Yeah, dude, I'll probably be out of my seat again this next episode, pacing around and freaking out. But I think it's probably coming to a head, sort of like the first season did, where last couple of episodes are pretty intense. There's going to be more heartbreak. I think I mentioned in last week's First Watch that Hal Hickel, who we follow on Twitter and are big fans of, said that we should all sort of get ready for the roller coaster that's the rest of this season. And I'm feeling it. And you made a great observation yesterday, which was that this feels like the middle chapter of season 2 has come to a close. And I
Yep.
noticed on Spotify the other day that they finally organized some of the music for the show. So season 2 Mandalorian is now grouped as chapters 9 through 12, and then chapters 13 and 14 are sort of hanging out there. And so they deliberately grouped that opening act together. I think this is the second act, and I think now we're going to get into resolving the big conflict in the third act. And I'm also wondering, like, are we going to get extra long episodes towards the end here?
I hope so.
Am I gonna have to get up at 4 instead of 5 in the morning every
I
Friday?
hope so, because I love all the content, but at the same time, if it takes less time to tell the compelling story, that's fine. Like
Yeah.
this one it was the shortest one of season 2, and it felt like one of the longest ones, just because of everything that they were able to cram in it. So
Yeah, there was not a second wasted. It was just all action or story. There was no sort of sitting around. But I'm still trying to learn more about Tython and all these different things and whatever after the fact, because during the episode it was just so intense, where every second was really meaningful and impactful and whatever. But yeah, hopefully we'll get a little bit more backstory too as we go. But I have a feeling it's going to be action and tears and an emotional roller coaster for these last two.
definitely will. Buckle up. We're gonna need our antidepressants and whatever keeps us fueled up to to stay on this course we call life.
It's getting deep. Oh my gosh, yeah. But dude, I can't really think enough just how lucky we are to be Star Wars fans at this point in history. Like, how spoiled are we that we have something this great right now, and we know that there's more coming. Movies on the horizon, spin-off series are being talked about, and things like that. So even though it's kind of breaking my heart to know that little Grogu is sitting somewhere in his little toddler-sized shackles, which is horrible, I'm so glad that we have this, and it's been so much fun watching this.
I can't agree with that more. And there's probably no better way to end it than a positive note on such a tragic feeling episode.
Yeah, agreed. So the one thing I'll close on is just real quick is I hope Frog Lady comes back and joins their team of bandits and assassins and super warriors, and somehow helps to save little Grogu as well.
I agree with that. I feel like we need a little bit more from Frog Lady.
I hope I'm not the only one thinking that, but
no, dude, I don't think so.
I'm excited for this next one, and I guess we'll close the way that we always close and say, this is the way.
This is the way.